What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. This is going to be my free agency preview. We're going to look at 8 mid-level exception targets for the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, I wanted to do more preview content, but the more I looked at some of the math and some of the salaries, I realized that some options probably won't be available to the Portland Trail Blazers. That is the biannual exception, which is a $4 million exception, much like the MLE, but it hard caps you at the tax apron, which is about approximately $157 million this year. And believe it or not, Portland is going to be pushing that line once they re-sign Jusuf Nurkic for approximately $17 million a year is the rumor. Anthony Simons for about $20 million a year. You got Jeremy Grant making $20 million a year. You got Damian Lillard making $42 million next year. You'd have the MLE at about $10 million. Eric Bledsoe might have some dead money on the books. You got Andrew Nicholson's $2.8 million of dead money. When you add all that up, Portland would be pushing the tax apron, even if they use the full mid-level exception. They might be able to use the full mid-level exception, which is about $10.2 million to sign a free agent with. A lot of these targets become a lot more realistic if Portland can dip into the full mid-level exception. However, I try to come up with targets, all of which could potentially sign for the taxpayer mid-level exception, which is less, at about $6.34 million a year. And only using that amount of money, Portland doesn't get hard capped. Their salary can be whatever. If they use more than that and dip into the full mid-level exception, they get hard capped. The other thing that hard caps teams is bringing a player in sign and trade. I wanted to do sign and trade targets as a video before free agency, but when you're talking about bringing in a guy who would probably be making $20 to $30 million a year, no other sign and trade targets really make much sense. At that point, the salaries just don't really work under the hard cap that gets put in if you sign and trade for someone. Therefore, it's just MLE targets for this free agency preview. We will have a free agency stream tomorrow going live at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll have a fresh graphics package for that. We will have Woj's and Sham's Twitter feeds on the stream, so you don't have to sit there on Twitter refreshing the Twitter feeds. You can see the live refreshing Twitter feeds on our stream while we talk about things and hang out with you guys for about 7 hours. That's how long the streams usually go. So hopefully you can join us tomorrow for that free agency stream. With all that being said, let's jump into 8 MLE targets for the Portland Trail Blazers. The first of which is Chris Boucher, who had a down season last year, only playing 21 minutes a game, averaging almost 10 points per game, but didn't shoot the ball well, 46% for the field, 30% from 3. Kind of brought his numbers back up to endless season, but compared to the season before that, he definitely had a down year. As the season before that, he averaged 13.6 points per game. He shot 38% from 3, shot 51% from the field. So a little bit of a down year for Chris Boucher. He's intriguing, though, as a guy who could potentially be the backup center. He's skinny, maybe a little too skinny to hold his own consistently as a backup 5, but he has the length. So you could potentially play him as the backup 4, maybe Watford as the backup 5, or maybe go get a minimum guy for the backup 5. And he could be a piece that you bring in that can play some defense, block some shots, knock down some threes. Hopefully he gets that percentage back up and just be an all-around solid backup big man. The next player we have to look at is Danilo Gallinari. Now, Danilo Gallinari just got traded to the San Antonio Spurs for DeJounte Murray, and there's rumors that the Spurs are going to buy him out. However, I don't know if that's 100% the case. They could elect to keep him, thus obviously not making him an option for the Portland Trail Blazers, but he's on this list as a potential option should the San Antonio Spurs release him. And Danilo Gallinari is a really good offensive forward. I tried to focus on some defense in this video, but if they're not able to get a good defensive backup 4-man, you might as well swing for some offense, a guy that can shoot the ball, a guy that can handle the ball, attack the rim a little bit, but is mainly just a 3-point sniper and a better defender than people realize. I think he's okay on the defensive end. He's not great, but I don't think he's terrible. And having a veteran presence off the bench that can shoot at a really high clip, which he can, would be definitely a solid option for the taxpayer mid-level exception. exception. He might get more from another team, we'll have to wait and see. The third MLE target for the Portland Trail Blazers is Derrick Jones Jr., who would make his return to Rip City, as last year he played for the Chicago Bulls after Portland traded him there for Larry Nance Jr. as part of the Lauri Markkanen trade, and Derrick Jones Jr. had a solid year. Didn't play a ton of minutes, only 17.6 minutes per game, but shot the ball decently well, 54% from the field, 33% from three. That was higher earlier in the year. He kind of struggled as the year went on, but I remember looking at his numbers like halfway through the season and being impressed because he was shooting the three-point ball at like 38%. That's always been the thing with the Derrick Jones Jr., but he ended up getting hurt later on in the season. That's why he only played 51 games. However, I just think he's a good target to bring back to Portland because Portland needs a good on-ball defender with some length that could guard some threes and fours, and Derrick Jones Jr. might be the best option to do that because there's not many gettable free agents at forward spots that are good on-ball defenders that have the size to guard the 3 and the 4. That's just the way it is. Some people will toss out Nick Batum. I expect him to go back to the Los Angeles Clippers, and honestly, Derrick Jones Jr. playing in Chauncey Billups' system I think would be a better fit than playing in Terry Stotts' system. You could bring Derrick Jones Jr. in and have a bench lineup that just is run and gun, super athletic with Anthony Simons, Josh Hart, maybe Shaedon Sharpe, Derrick Jones Jr., and then who knows who the backup 5 is, but you would have some athleticism there and a team that could run the floor. And the ball and player movement in Chauncey Billups' offense is better than in Terry Stotts' offense, and I think that serves Derrick Jones Jr. well. So maybe you guys could get another Derrick Jones Jr. moment. If you know, you know. Anyway, let's go to the next player, which is going to be Isaiah Hartenstein. This is my favorite target with the mid-level exception. It's rumored that Orlando wants him for some reason, even though they have Paulo Banchero and Wendell Carter Jr. It's rumored that Orlando wants Isaiah Hartenstein, but Portland should definitely take a swing on him, as in a little under 18 minutes per game, he averaged 8 points per game, about 5 rebounds and 2.5 assists, over a block per game, shooting 63% from the field and 47% from 3. Now, he didn't shoot a ton of threes. He only shot 30 on the season, but 14 for 30 is pretty impressive. Isaiah Hartenstein grades out as one of the best rim protectors in the league last season. Basketball Index, I think, has him as the best rim protector in the league. He blocked a lot of shots, said that he watched a ton of film defensively, kind of studied some of the things that Draymond would say in interviews, like he just was a sponge in the past off season or two, just trying to become a better defensive player, and I think it's worked. He has solid foot speed to be able to play up at the point of screens and to be able to guard a little bit on the perimeter. Defensively, he is great as a backup big, also has some foul trouble, but when he does all the things he does defensively, you will absolutely take that in a backup big man. And to truly put his numbers in context, I'm going to reference some per 36 stats for him. Per 36 minutes last season, Hartenstein averaged about 17 points per game, 10 rebounds, a little under 5 assists, so he can pass the ball too. 2.3 blocks per game and 1.5 steals. I think he'd be an absolute steal on the taxpayer mid-level exception. I don't think he'll necessarily be gettable with the taxpayer mid-level exception, but the Blazers' first offer tomorrow should be to Isaiah Hartenstein. The next player we're going to talk about is Jalen Smith, who got traded from Phoenix to Indiana at last year's trade deadline after Phoenix mistakenly didn't pick up Jalen Smith's third-year team option, which is just absolutely ridiculous. So Jalen Smith is an unrestricted free agent very early in his career and actually played his way into maybe a little bit of a payday. It's a really weird situation, but the stats below are Jalen Smith's stats from his time in Indiana last season. It's not the entire season, just his time with the Pacers, and he looked good with a Indiana team that admittedly was tanking and was losing a lot of games, so good stats on a bad team, but he definitely impressed, averaging 13 points per game, shooting the ball decently from the field, shooting the ball decently from 3, 37%, and Jalen Smith is a good rebounder, solid defensive player, can protect the rim a little bit, can shoot the 3 ball. He would just be a very solid get for backup 5 with some agility, and he's still young, so he still has potentially a lot of untapped potential that hopefully Portland could tap into if they sign him. So I think Jalen Smith would be a really good get. Next player we're going to talk about is Otto Porter Jr. from the Golden State Warriors. Now, I expect him to go back to Golden State, but he just won a championship. Maybe he's fulfilled what he wanted out of his experience with the Golden State Warriors. So if he's looking for a little bit more of a payday, maybe a taxpayer mid-level exception, Portland should definitely go after him as a guy that can knock down some threes, play some defense, and just play within the system. Has the size to play the 3 or the 4. He's a better three-point shooter than he is defender, but I think he's an above average defensive player, and I think he'd fit in pretty seamlessly as a backup power forward coming off the bench, playing 20 to 25 minutes a game. Next up, we have another Indiana Pacer, that is TJ Warren, who has only played 4 games in the last 2 years. Last season, he didn't even play due to a foot injury, and he's definitely an injury-prone player. The stats down below are from his last full-time season, which came in 2019 to 2020. Now, if he had this type of season last year and wasn't injury-prone, there's no way TJ Warren would be gettable for the taxpayer mid-level exception. However, his injury issues have definitely degraded his value on the free agent market this summer. So if you're Portland, you could take a risk on a guy who, when healthy, has shown to be one of the better scorers in the NBA. Now, the problem I have with TJ Warren, other than his injury issues, is that he's not a good defensive player. I think Portland needs that, but as I said, not many defensive targets out there, so if you're going to swing for some offense, maybe take a chance at a TJ Warren. The efficiency numbers in that season was incredible: 54% for the field, 40% from 3 on almost 20 points per game. That level of scoring is hard to find off the bench in the NBA, and Portland could have 2 of the best bench scorers if they had a healthy TJ Warren as well as a Josh Hart. And then you run Anthony Simons with the bench unit, you stagger him with Damian Lillard, and then if Shaedon Sharpe can break out a little bit, then you have one of the best benches in the league. Defense is definitely a question mark with that type of unit, but offensively that would be phenomenal. And the final target we're going to talk about is Kyle Anderson from the Memphis Grizzlies, who is an intriguing player. I mean, he plays at his own pace. He's called slow-mo for a reason, and he's become a solid defensive player, can play make a little bit, just seems like a Chauncey Billups type of player, and could come in and be that forward that is a good on-ball defender that you could throw up against some of the better forwards in the league. I wouldn't start Kyle Anderson at the 3. I'd want to bring him off the bench as like the backup 4. I think he has the size to play that position, but his defense, playmaking, and then hopefully his shooting is good enough. That is an intriguing combination to have off the bench that I think would fit in well. And when talking about his three-point shooting, it is a bit of a question mark: 33% from 3. That's right in line with his career averages. His shot is very weird, kind of has a hitch, very slow, so he's not really a dynamic three-point shooting threat, but it's better than a Justice Winslow in my opinion, who's an even worse shooter than that. And Kyle Anderson has more size than a Justice Winslow, so therefore I think he could be a potential target with the mid-level exception. Anyway, that wraps up this video. Let me know what you think about the targets down in the comment section below. Let me know if there's any targets that I missed that you would go after. Like I said, stream tomorrow, free agency stream, our longest stream of the year. We'll be here all day, going live 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Hopefully you can make it. Anyway, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you just found us, we do post-game shows, live post-game shows during the course of the entire season, so definitely subscribe for that. Leave a like on this video, and I'm out of here. I'll catch you in the next one. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.